Ladies and gentlemen, the sixth inductee for season 2025 into the Ovens and Murray Hall of Fame is Terry Burgess.
The Burgess family's deep connection to Myrtleford and the Ovens and Murray League began 65 years ago when Terry Burgess Sr. first pulled on the Saints jumper. That bond was immortalised in 1970 when Terry Sr. became the oldest player in the club's one and only premiership. The football legacy continued with his son, Terry Burgess Jr., who carved out a remarkable career of his own. In 1983, the lightly framed but hugely talented on-baller Terry Burgess won the Morris Medal by a commanding 10 votes. That same year he also took home Myrtleford's best and fairest, playing in a team that featured none other than the legendary Gary Ablett. Unfortunately for the Saints, a second Ovens and Murray flag slipped through their fingers that year when they were beaten by Albury in the preliminary final. Burgess won his third Myrtleford Best and Fairest in 1988 before joining Wodonga, where he would join his late father as a senior Ovens and Murray Premiership player 2 years later. His contribution was critical in the 1990 Grand Final match, infamously dubbed as the Bloodbath. Burgess had battled back and groin injuries for most of the season, but the Bulldogs took a punt that paid off in spades. On a bruising afternoon, Burgess's 2 late goals provided the vital spark that helped the Bulldogs to come from behind at three-quarter time to win the flag. Post his playing career, which had also included 6 matches for the Ovens and Murray rep side, Burgess turned to coaching, winning a hat-trick of flags with the Wodonga Reserves between 1993 and 1995, and with the Wodonga Raiders under-18 side in 2010. At senior level, Burgess also had 2 stints as coach of Myrtleford and also coached Corowa Rutherglen. Terry's sister Lindy is also an Ovens and Murray Hall of Famer, becoming the first netball inductee a decade ago. Terry Burgess, an undoubted star player of the game, with team and individual honours achieved throughout his career, can now proudly add induction into the Ovens and Murray Hall of Fame.
What an outstanding career that I don't think it's probably finished yet, and we can talk a little bit more about that, but I just want to start off with some information that wasn't in the slides and the video. Terry, being inducted tonight, becomes the 4th person inducted who's been involved with 4 clubs. So the other 3 are John Smith, who we've heard about tonight, Frank Hodgkin, his sister, Lindy, and Terry becomes the 4th. But he becomes the first out of well over 100 inductees that's not only been involved with 4 clubs, but at AFL level and AFLW level. And I'm going to ask Terry a little bit about that. So my first question to Terry in setting an unbelievable benchmark is, you've been involved with Myrtleford, Wodonga, Corowa, and you went to Corowa at pretty rough times, and also Raiders. What is it about the journey with all of those clubs that's kept you going? I know your dad set some pretty high standards, but what drove Terry Jr.?
Graham, it was probably my upbringing and how good people were to me at that time. And I thought, well, some people need some help. So I went to some places that probably not many other people would go, but I just felt I enjoyed coaching and the challenge with it, and they were tough times. But it was my way of giving back to the game.
A premiership player at Wodonga, and I don't want to go into the details of some of that. I think that's been covered over the years, but you then coached Wodonga Reserves to at least 3 flags. You coached Raiders under-18s to a premiership. And then you went to Raiders and helped out with their AFLW side. But in between that, you had a stint in the AFL at Richmond. So can you just share some of the stories about your involvement in Melbourne? And I know one of your good friends and mentors is here tonight.
Yeah, well, it was a fantastic experience, and back in those days, Punt Road wasn't the Punt Road we know today. It was a pretty run down establishment. There was probably more possums there than members. But that was just the way it was, and they had to do the best with what they got, and I was lucky enough through my friendship with Jeff to be down there at the time and get some exposure and experience and help out where I could. It was a pretty much dog-eat-dog environment, 24/7 as it is today. The level of scrutiny that's placed upon people is unbelievable, but it was a fantastic experience for me.
So coaching the men and the under-18s is one set of skills, and then you decided to get involved with the introduction of the AFLW, and I did talk to some people at Raiders, including Sky, about your involvement there. So you coached the ladies for a number of years. What is different about coaching the men to the ladies?
Well, there's probably one thing, the emotional content that you can get is probably different than the men's. But that comes for a different reason. They like the game of footy, they love the combative element to it, they can't get it in any other sport, and the fact that it was new and enticing for girls to come and try out and see how they went, drove the competition forward, and I was just lucky enough that I was there at that time to help steer that along.
So you won a Morris medal. There's no higher accolade that you can do at the O&M than winning a league medal, but to continue on the way that you did, I know you said earlier about that's the way you were brought up, but you were driven to keep participating, and you still do. So is there some longer term ambition that you have with football, or is it just to continue the journey as you are?
No, I think my journey's almost over. My oldest daughter is currently coaching the AFLW Raiders Women's Open team. So depending on what happens there as to how much longer I may be involved in the game itself, I'll just become like everybody else and just head off to the games whenever I want and watch and enjoy that part of the game.
I saw Scotty up there before and Lindy, and the name, the Burgess name is synonymous with sport across the northeast. Terry is an elite athlete. Those of you who run, Terry has beaten his age with time in the Nailcan Hill run. He runs marathons, half marathons. He's a bit of a nit, I reckon, with all this running, but he's an outstanding athlete in many ways, and he's set a great level, and he's a great ambassador for the kids. So tell me what's the involvement, knowing that your brother was pretty handy football, Lindy was pretty good with netball, Donna was a good runner. Not sure about Karen, I'm not sure what she did, but the family is just synonymous with sport.
Yeah, well, that was how we were brought up, Graham, and there was all these activities and options available, and I'll talk a little bit more about how good some people were in those fields and provided those opportunities for us kids growing up. And when you're 1 of 5 and you're living on a farm, things can get pretty competitive. And that's basically stayed with us for our whole lives. The running side of things was just, it came out of the blue, had a good athletics career before I went full-time into footy. I was cooked when I finished footy, and I was cooked. I never ran for 15 years after I played footy, and then all of a sudden a bit of dialogue come up about, running again, and of course somebody challenged me to do something, and that was probably the kicker. So I thought I'd have a crack at Nailcan. After 15 years of not running, I didn't even know what Nailcan was. I knew it was a major event around the community, but I didn't know anything about the terrain or the track or anything. And anyway, apparently, I didn't know at this time, but the benchmark was 50 minutes for any bloke having a crack. It was 50 minutes, and I thought, 11.2 Ks, and I reckon I could nearly do that. When I got to the first hill and had to run 2 Ks at a 300 metre climb in 2 Ks, the legs were burning. But luckily enough, I beat the 50 minutes, but did wake me up and said, well, if I'm going to run this event, I've got to get serious. So I backed that up the following year. I went from 49 minutes down to 44 and finished 9th overall, and I was 50 years of age then.
Premierships, medals, you've done it all. I've got one last question for you. You're a bit fastidious with your garden and your lawns.
I have been known for a bit of lawn porn or whatever they call it.
So I want to ask you, what is your proudest moment? Is it the medals and the premierships, or is it your lawn, or the birth of your first grandson?
She's nearly got me under the pump. I'm going to go with the grandson.
Well done. It's all yours.
All I know is it's a lot easier sitting down there than it is up here. But if Ivanka can do it, hopefully I can. First of all, I would like to thank the Ovens and Murray Hall of Fame Committee for my induction into the Hall of Fame, of which I am very humbled. Second, I would like to thank all the previous Ovens and Murray administrators and volunteers who have helped build and maintain the Ovens and Murray as one of the premier leagues outside Metro Melbourne. I would also like to congratulate all the previous and 2025 inductees into the Hall of Fame. All these people have played an enormous part in the rich history of the Ovens and Murray, for which I have enjoyed the opportunities and experiences throughout my 20-year playing career. I would never have had these opportunities if it wasn't for the support of my parents, Terry and Virginia Burgess, who encouraged me and motivated me to be the best I could. They would be chuffed looking down on this recognition, not only with me, but my sister Lindy. It sort of sounds good, it's a sister-brother combo. Not to be outdone, Dad let us know he was still around, and only 2 weeks ago, myself and my siblings were invited down to the St Kilda Football Club, where Dad played, to have him formally recognised as the second ever player with Indigenous heritage to play for the Saints. I also received a phone call during the week from a media outlet who was wishing to do another article on him and to confirm that he was the 12th VFL, AFL player with Indigenous heritage to play. So well done, Dad. Not only were my parents vital in my opportunities, but the rest of my siblings, Donna, Lindy, Scott and Karen, were all there to provide vital ingredients growing up and motivating and challenging one another throughout our childhood life in anything we attempted. Donna, decorated basketball athletic career, Lindy Hall of Fame, decorated netball career, Scott 300 games for the Myrtleford Football Club. Karen was a very good junior swimmer but chose to go in a different direction. The fact that she's still with us is probably a significant achievement. Growing up on the farm as kids, plenty of time on your hands, you always were looking to do something and challenge yourself and be the best you could. There's an unwritten rule in family, there's a chain of command. It generally starts at the top and it works its way down to the bottom. So whenever we had any doubts about whether we should do anything, we had to run a test case. And unfortunately for my little sis, she always seemed to be the one to draw the short straw and was put on the table to perform whatever task we wanted to perform to make sure it was safe. Unfortunately, most of the time we got it right, but there was sometimes we didn't get it right. And the best thing that happened out of that was she grew up and we didn't have that opportunity to do that anymore. Hence why she's still with us today. Love you, sis. I was also very lucky that I had a couple of great mates throughout this journey, in David Madison and Bernie Ivo. And their partners, Megan and Vanessa, who were great support to me, and they were great fun to be around, so I thank you guys so much. Jeez, now I get to the best thing that ever happened out of footy, was meeting my wife, my darling wife Marie. She has provided unbelievable and loyal support to my footy journey, and without this support, it would not have been the same journey for me. She has done an amazing job looking after me and my two beautiful daughters, Sky and Holly, and of course, now one grandchild. To all of you, I say a big thank you. This points to me what this induction means to me. This induction is all about people and fantastic communities. And I was very fortunate that I had exactly that. The Myrtleford community played an enormous part in my journey in sport. Those wonderful people were prepared to give up their time, their energy, and provide a safe, encouraging learning environment. And it was not just across one sport, it was across multiple sports. And there were some outstanding individuals who drove those opportunities. And the epitome of that was Leonard George Ablett, known as Len Ablett, or more formally known as the Prez. His charisma, his charm, plus his business acumen, in his 20-year reign as president, oversaw the transformation of the Myrtleford Football Club into the Ovens and Murray and the upgrade of the off-field facilities from a fibro cement shed to one of the finest off-field facilities in country Victoria. So to the Myrtleford community, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've been to a few Hall of Fame induction nights, and I've been blown away by the quality of people in the Hall of Fame, and more importantly, some of their achievements, not at Ovens and Murray level, but at the very highest level. I certainly don't have that, but what I can do is share with you what it was like for a scrawny little kid trying to play footy growing up in the country. My first recollection of footy was from baby photos, and as I was apparently born with a Sharon, of course there weren't too many sizes available then, so a full Sharon it was. I would follow Dad everywhere he went, read football and spent many hours honing my craft, mucking around with the footy and anything I could get my hands on. In my early teenage years, I thought I would make the most of my time at the footy club, and I'd become the self-professed club boot starter. And I would look after and clean the footy boots of some of the players, and I received a hefty $1 a pair. I thought I'd made it. My favourite player was Kevin Smith, also a Hall of Famer. He could do it all, drop kicks with both feet, with ease, and was a very good mark. More importantly was his magnetic persona and charisma, which was strange, because he wasn't an extrovert, he was someone who let his actions do the talking. My crowning moment throughout those early years was being the mascot for the Myrtleford Football Club in 1970 with my best mate, and they won their one and only premiership and all the mayhem that happened after that. I then moved into junior footy and was allocated to play for the Purples because that's of my residential address. It was the beginning of a footy journey and an understanding of what was required to play the game and how tribal it was in a fun sense. In those days, there wasn't a full complement of age groups. We had under 12s, under 16s. It was a good, tough introduction, as there were plenty of kids and lots of mature bodies. Throughout this journey, there were also some school footy thrown in, and I can remember one day playing a game in Albury at Fallon Street. We clear the ball from the centre deep into the forward line, and there's the full forward, standing there with his arms folded, watching a plane take off from the Albury airport. Hence to say, we didn't get out of Myrtleford very often. The next opportunity was the Ovens and Murray under-18 competition, which was great, as we got to go on a bus and get out of town every second week. This also introduced me to my first coach, Vic Roney, who was a dyed-in-the-wool red, white and black, very competitive, passionate and called a spade, and you certainly knew where you stood. He also introduced a drill, and most people in this room would know it, it's called British Bulldog, which required players to get from one side of a rectangle to the other without being tackled. I'm sure he used this as a selection tool, as it was a regular drill, but this is where I learnt the art of evasion, which was to stand me in good stead throughout my footy career. During this time, I came across the Myrtleford Football Club senior coach at the time, Mike Andrews, who was a big, strong, fearless playing coach. I was often at the ground doing anything from having a kick to ground maintenance and would see this guy turn up, run 10 laps and leave. I thought to myself, if he's doing that, I'd better get cracking as well. And no doubt this left a lasting memory on me. During this time, I had the fortunate opportunity. Dad was coaching in the seconds. And I can remember one day, maybe 1973, in a practice match in the seconds at Wang Rovers. I would have only been 12. And of course, they were shorter players, so Dad asked me to sit on the bench. That was fine. But Dad, in his wisdom, decided to bring me on at 3/4 time. Fresh legs, tactical sub, game changer are some of the modern terms. But Dad said to me, you know how to play the game, we'll look after you, get out there. This was reassuring, but there's a big difference between being on the bench and actually being out there, 45 kgs versus 80 to 100. But Dad was confident, so off I went. I'm pretty sure I didn't do too much, but I remember Dad taking a mark in the forward pocket, Wang Rovers clubroom side, up against the boundary. Now, in true Dad style, he wasn't going to let the crowd get in his head or listen to the friendly advice he was getting from over the fence. But I'm sure one comment struck a chord. It went like this: "You're too old, you can't kick that, you old fart." And as only Dad could, he went back, slotted it straight through the middle. He turned around, he nodded his head at the gentleman, gave me a high five, ran back to the centre, his chest was puffed out. Dad was in his element. That's a memory I'll never forget. Then I encountered my first senior coach in Martin Cross, who had returned to the club for a second stint as senior coach. This was an easy transition for me, as our families had spent plenty of time together previously through athletics and football. And it was more of the same, another coach big on fitness and discipline, instrumental in shaping my career and the player I was to become. So thank you very much, Martin. And to back this up, when you talk about fitness and discipline, and I've got a fellow member here with me tonight that can back me up. We were only young kids starting off on the journey. We had a terrible loss, and one night of training we had to do 18 laps as part of training. Unfortunately for me, being keen and eager and always there at training on time and getting organised and warming up, I did about 26. Hence to say this little bloke was pretty tired when he got home. I was like any other young player who had to work hard for his opportunities to become a regular senior player, but all this did was make me more determined to improve and get to a level so I would become a regular senior player. I was lucky during this period that our reserves were strong and mature side and gave me the confidence to play the way I could. It was also good timing for me because the senior team had just recruited a ruckman from Tasmania called Rod Page, who was a very good tap ruckman, and we would go on to form a great relationship and chemistry on the field. Next was the recruitment of another senior player in Peter Howard, midfielder, an absolute professional in the way he trained, prepared and played, winning 2 Morris medals and finishing 3rd in another. He was also my school teacher, and lucky enough for me, was my school teacher. So I had access to him every day, which was great for my learning and growth as a footballer. So this mix, plus a good bunch of local kids coming through junior footy, together allowed us the players to flourish and mature and become good players in a very competitive team. And we all know, being around footy clubs, we understand the importance of them and the mateship and the camaraderie and all that sort of stuff, the social connection, but you also have stuff around banter. And sometimes blokes will do some stuff to put their stamp on the club or lift the mood or whatever. One of the funniest things that I can remember, 2 or 3 senior players thought it'd be a good idea to go and pinch one of Dad's sheep out of the paddock one night. I'm not sure they thought this through, but they decided to take it to the social function that was on that night. After having a bit of fun with this, they were told to remove it from the social function. Now, most people would take it back to where they got it from, but unfortunately, due to being inebriated, they thought they would take a good idea and take it home. Home being our house, not the paddock. Now, they were seen and heard by myself and brother Scott, who were living in a caravan at the time outside the family house. They were giggling and laughing like kids getting the sheep out of the ute and into the laundry. To this day, I'm not sure why either myself or my brother just didn't go and let it out. But we fell asleep. The next thing we hear was our mother had woken up and was making her way to the laundry. When she opened the laundry door, she was greeted with a loud "Bah!" Then was headbutted by the sheep, knocked over, landing in 2 inches of sheep shit as it had been locked up all night. Hence to say, there was a thorough investigation into the incident, as there were reliable witnesses who could identify the assailants. But being country people, we saw past the seriousness and saw the funny side. My next major experience is in 1983. It was an extraordinary year for the Myrtleford Footy Club through numerous unplanned events which would go a long way towards the outcome of that year. Firstly, for me, I was lucky enough to be at North Melbourne Football Club and represent the AFL in the Battle of Codes at Olympic Park. This was a series of athletic events across 3 codes: Aussie rules, rugby league and soccer, to see who the best code was. It was an awesome experience, and to be around some of the stars of the codes at that time. Hence to say though, there were some different personalities on display. I competed in a distance event and achieved a minor placing, all while attending a full training camp at Sorrento, with a club practice match as well. I was lucky enough to break the club pre-season endurance record that year, which gave me a fair bit of confidence around my fitness levels and set me up for a fantastic year. Things back at Myrtleford were starting to take shape. A new coach and Greg Nichols and new recruits on the radar to give the club a feeling of optimism for the upcoming year. Over the next couple of months, things started to happen back at Myrtleford, and there was a real sense of team opportunities that were revolving around having some success. Just before the start of the year, myself and Ian Wales decided to return to Myrtleford from North Melbourne, and then we landed what many people believe to be the greatest recruit in Ovens and Murray history in Gary Ablett. And to this day, it's still hard to believe that after 9 games finishing with us, he kicks 8 goals in a state game for Victoria, and then goes on to kick 1,000 goals for Geelong. We were just so lucky that we had him for 12 months. Hence the opportunities to play finals was tangible for the first time for a while, and the players and community got behind trying to make it happen. We get to the end of the year, finish the home and away season with a double chance in the finals. Well, that was tipped on its head in the last game of the year, when North Albury was successful in challenging the league to uphold an appeal for the Vanilla Football Club playing an unregistered player earlier in the year. So we go from a double chance to a cutthroat final, which is a bit to get your head around. History now shows it was an unbelievable final series for us, and the chain of events that were to unfold simply meant we just had to adapt and stay in the moment. We win our first final, then we play North Albury in the next final, which would be a promoter's dream. Hence to say there was plenty on the line in this game, and as you can guess, it was a remarkable game of footy. I can remember being almost 20 points down, almost at the time-on period in the last quarter, noticing people had started to leave the ground, thinking it was over. Then what happened in the next 6 minutes was unbelievable. Some individual brilliance from Gary Ablett, Ian Wales and myself. We kick 4 goals and we win the game. The euphoria after the game and the fact that people had started coming back into the ground when they sensed what was happening, and no word of a lie, somehow most of those people made their way into the change rooms to celebrate. And there would have been over 1,000 people squeezed into those small away change rooms in the Wangaratta. So next, we're off to the preliminary final against Albury at Wangaratta. We weren't playing our best footy, and Albury were inaccurate keeping us in the game, but we were up into the last quarter when a spectator decides to jump the fence and join in, which disrupted our momentum, and Albury finished too strong and were too good for us, hence the fairy tale's over. To help me get over this, I was lucky enough to win the Morris Medal that year and cap off a fantastic year. My next footy opportunity came for me when John Byrne gave me an opportunity to play rep footy for the Ovens and Murray, which results in winning the country championships. We also get to play the winner of the Metro comp the following year in a pre-season game in Melbourne at Waverley Park. This was a great experience getting to play and getting to know the best players and characters in the league. Danny Craven kicked 7 that night. The next significant experience for me is moving clubs and joining the Wodonga Football Club and meeting Jeff Geeshan. I played in back-to-back grand finals in what were significant games in the history of the Ovens and Murray. I got to experience the highs and I got to experience the lows in those 2 games in 2 seasons. We lose the grand final against Yarrawonga in 1989 after leading all day, playing in 30-degree heat, and also dealing with a bomb scare which held up the game for an extended period during the half-time break. Congrats to the Yarrawonga Footy Club as they showed gritty resilience as a club and a team that year, and they go on and win the grand final. This was a huge psychological blow for us and a long pre-season to get over it. You have that little bloke inside your head saying things like grand finals are hard to win, you need lots of luck, maybe got to lose one to win one, but when the next opportunity come. I finished that year sore and have an operation to fix the issue, and this is the first time in my footy career that I'm faced with a lengthy rehab phase and something that I wasn't used to because I'd been bulletproof up until then. So 1990 would become the most significant year in football. I would experience the lowest of lows and the highest of highs. For the first time in football, I have to deal and navigate my way through a mental side of the game, which was all new to me. I had 4 operations that year, I played 4 reserve games, and I get to 1 month left in the season. I'm frustrated and I'm mentally cooked. And for the first time, I think about retiring. I speak to my wife and Coach Jeff, and they encouraged me to finish the year out. We decided on a plan and a program that would incorporate footy training and medical science to get through the last 4 weeks and a possible final series as motivation. This for me was the turning point. I didn't know what would happen, but for the first time I was in the right headspace. And I realised I wasn't going to be the player I wanted to be, but I could be the player the team needed me to be. All I had to do was stay in the moment, 1 training session at a time, 1 doctor's visit at a time, and keep looking ahead. I get to play the last game of the year in the reserves, then have a week off because the reserves finish on top, which puts me 6 weeks into a training block. And for the first time for the year, I feel like I'm improving and getting fitter. But I think to myself, geez, we've got the 2 hardest games left in the year, the preliminary final and the grand final if we make it. I had no idea what was going to happen in the next 2 weeks, but I'm extremely fortunate that Jeff Gershon had the courage to select me in a cutthroat preliminary final after playing 2 games of footy, looking to improve cohesion in the front half to help win the game. I'm serviceable, I play about 50% of game time, we win a hard, tough match and proceed to the grand final. Grand finals are big weeks, as Daniel will tell you. There's training, there's photos, there's medical appointments, there's lots of excitement, there's anticipation towards the build-up, and there's plenty of media attention. I didn't know if I'd be selected, so I just stuck to the plan and didn't worry too much about the media and the conjecture around the possible selections on both sides. Later in the week, I'm notified I'm playing in the grand final. It's all very well for a coach to pull the trigger once, but he was pulling it twice. Around a guy who had played 3 games of footy in 3 months. He was determined to take a side that was hard fit and had as much experience and run as possible, as he thought this would be the best opportunity to win the grand final. I only ticked 2 boxes and barely won them. I enjoyed the rest of the week, preparing for the grand final, and as always there is lots of speculation around team selections, tactics and mind games. I'm not going to talk too much in detail about that day, other than to say it was a tough day at the office. I was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and help my team win a significant grand final. This fulfilled a childhood dream that I'd had every day for the previous 30 years and was almost identical to what I'd replayed over and over in my mind. I would like to thank again my foundation club, the Myrtleford Football Club, its volunteers, all its coaches, all my teammates, all the supporters, for giving me opportunities around sport. I also owe a great deal of gratitude to the Wodonga Football Club, Jeff Gershon, Lloyd Dean, all their volunteers, all my teammates, all their supporters, and of course Dr. Bill Grant. Without his help it wouldn't have happened. Post my playing days I entered the coaching arena to fill a void left from playing footy, and for the next 30 years of my life I had the opportunity to meet some wonderful people at clubs at various levels of football. Throughout this journey I realised the sporting arena isn't playing on a level playing field for a variety of reasons. But I also get to experience how important these opportunities are for people and communities. This rounded out my footy journey and got me to understand that sometimes participation is as important as winning, and also got me to understand, to appreciate what I had and not to worry about what I didn't have. So to all the volunteers and coaches out there, stick at it. Let's hope we find another little scrawny kid someday. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. A wonderful career. He's a deep thinker of the game, and I'm sure that we haven't heard the last of the contributions from the Burgess family, particularly Terry.